And there we are.
We're live.
We are live. Hey, everybody. It is Joy Ross and
Ame-Lia Tamburrini.
yes, will I ever get this right? Hey, you guys, welcome to another week of Soul2Soul conversations where we show up in this space, same place, same time every week, and talk about things that matter, and sometimes talk about silly stuff too, right? Have a little fun. But yeah, we do this show because we're committed to not being a part of what tragically has become part of the fabric of society these days, which is people not really talking about things that could be sensitive or could be difficult, and instead choosing to remain in the shallow waters and not really deal with things. We say no to that and we say, hey, that shouldn't be. And if that's going to change, why not let it begin with us? So we just show up to talk about whatever's on our hearts, whatever's on our minds. And we love it when you guys comment, most of you watch the replays. We love your feedback. We love your questions. We'd love to hear what topics are brewing on the inside of you that maybe you haven't shared because you don't feel that you have a safe space to have those conversations. Toss those to us. We have no fear about broaching any topic. So that's why we're here.
I love that how you just opened that up. I got this image of us jumping into the deep end with people, with others. And we're all swimming around in the deep end, but we're doing it together because I think that's the thing, is that some people are really trying to figure all this stuff out in their heads by themselves. And that's like desperation and scary. And we don't have to do it that way. So I think that's another reason why we're here, because we want to do this work with you. We don't have all the answers. We just have this platform and a lot of our own life experiences, and know that there's something that happens when we start into these conversations, and we want you to be with us and a part of that. So yes, yes, yes.
I just want to break out in song. When you said, I feel like we're in the deep end, I wanted to so break out in song. I'm like, Joy, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Oh, but you can hold those notes. You can hold Lady Gaga. Do it.
I'm not doing it. I'm not.
One of my favorite movies.
Me too. One of my favorite songs. That's a great song.
So good.
So,
Joy Ross, who are you?
I've got a cup today that a friend of mine gave me. It says, you are inspiring. This is, I guess, what she thought of me, right? And it's interesting that it's tough. It'd be tough to say, oh, I am inspiring. That's maybe something that I could dig into. Why is that tough, right? This cup says, I'm inspiring. I'm unique. This cup says, I'm talented. I'm marvelous. It says, I'm a doer, a thinker, a dreamer. I agree with those things. I see possibilities in everything. I have courage to take risks, discipline to move mountains, and faith to move mountains. Yeah. I turn challenges into opportunities. I try. And every day brings me something new to learn. I am very much today, so far in my day today, I'm very much in learning mode. So I am deeply a student today. I'm feeling that vibe in myself. And I'm things that aren't really bubbling up, but I'll just toss them out for people who would be curious about that. I am a business owner. I am an author. I am in communications work, community engagement work, environmental justice, climate justice work, and very much in my own deeply in the deep end, like we're talking scuba diving. I am in my own personal development work and journey, and I have been for probably 20 years, if I'm really honest about that. Um, yeah. So that's who I am. That's who I'm feeling like I am and want to say about who I am in this moment. Who are you,
Mm.
Ame-Lia?
Well, I just have
Today,
to
who are you
who am
today?
I today? First of all, I love how much your mug knows you, and I feel like your mug is now playing into our weekly shows.
It's all about the mug, y'all.
Very
It's all about the
important.
mugs.
What does my mug say? Oh, my mug is from it's a like a tourist mug, but it comes from Newfoundland, and this was a really profound visit I had, to Newfoundland to visit a really amazing friend and was a colleague there at that time, and we were running around in, like, Atlantic storm weather, getting soaked to our bone, and she was taking me to all these tourist attractions, and I was like, my jeans were just, like, dripping. It was so
That sounds
that's
like fun.
that's my memory of this mug. Um, today I feel like a creator because I have been stuck actually to getting work out into the world. I've been deep in pondering and learning and exploring and in my own inner work. And there's been a huge resistance to putting anything out. And so today I feel like I didn't think, I just took action because I kept hearing this message and it was around failure. And I thought, this message isn't just for me. Somebody else needs to hear it because I keep hearing it. So in that, and I think I said this last week too, but I do feel like a vessel. And when I'm a creator, when I'm in that creative space, I feel like a vessel. And so that's who I am today.
Mm.
I'm also a consultant. I'm the CEO of my company, Hum Consulting, and we are all about creating brave spaces for conversations that move humanity forward. We do that in restorative justice. We do that in the theme of community settings where we help people remember that they have the power to be kind. And I also work in land use development projects where there are Indigenous and non Indigenous partners at the table trying to understand each other's worldviews so that they can create something new that lifts everybody up and that heals the divides and the misunderstandings along the way. So all that. Also podcast host, Circle of Change is my home there, and so grateful to have that as another medium to be in community with people around these kind of conversations.
I love everything that you said, and I want to tack on two things and maybe chat about something that you brought up, right? So as you were talking, I thought, oh yeah, okay, I guess I could say the name of my communications business instead of just saying that I own one, right? And it links to who I am and the space that I'm standing in today, right? So the name of one of my companies is Apex Direct, and Apex is an acronym for Always Pursuing Excellence. And I named the company that because for two reasons, but primarily because it holds me accountable
Mm.
to one of the values that are foundational for me. I am a pursuer of excellence. I firmly believe in, if you're going to do something, put your all into it. Doesn't mean you're going to do it perfectly, but do the thing if you're going to do the thing and give it all you have, whatever that is. If you're running on a quarter of a tank, give it a quarter of a tank that day. So again, it's not about going hard and like having sleepless nights and doing everything perfect. No, it's about showing up and giving it your all. To me, that's what excellence is, and I'm so committed to that. And when you mentioned about the failure piece, it reminded me of my talk show as well, my radio show, Living Inside Out Today, and a conversation that is going to be on my show tomorrow, actually. And one of the things that we dive into is this thing that I think is very common for many of us, where we get sucked into perfectionism. We get sucked into a performance based way of living and being. And as a result of that, we often feel like we failed, because there is no such thing as doing anything perfectly. And when perfectionism is our goal, we will inevitably feel as if we fail, because something is always not going to go exactly as we wanted it or as we thought that it would, right? And so I think the failure topic is worth delving into. I've been posting about failure actually all week. Monday and Tuesday, my posts were about failure, because it's something that I've been thinking about, and why we view that word the way that we view it. And for me, it's I had a realization, like I really dug deep, like, Joy, what is actually your repulsion against that word? And for me, as I allowed myself to ask that question, where I landed was, oh, I get it. Something within me rejects even the notion of failure within the context of how we typically talk about it, because of my identity, because of my spiritual identity, right? And for me, that's grounded in knowing that I'm a daughter of God. And literally, his presence, his spirit is in me. And like, wait, so if his spirit is in me and God never fails, then failure is literally not a part of my identity. So it's not who I am. I am not ever standing in a place of being a failure. Now, what does happen is my perspective is often skewed, right? Or it can be skewed, where I'm going into something and I have a perspective. I have some notion in my head of, oh, this should turn out this way, right?
Mhm.
Or this is what I want. And then it doesn't actually turn out that way. That has nothing to do with my identity. That doesn't mean I am a failure. It means I thought something, and what I thought didn't turn out to match exactly an outcome that I projected. So that's where I am on failure. That's sort of like really going into the deep with that. But it's something that I have been thinking about the past 48 hours or so. And that's where I'm landing. I'm like, okay, yep. So I have reframed that word, really. Um, I took it out of my vocabulary for a long time. And then recently, because of some conversations that I was in, that we were both in, Ame-Lia, right? Recently, that word came up, and just this notion of failure and like embrace failure. And something within me was like, no,
Mm.
no. Embrace that sometimes we want things to turn out. Embrace this. Sometimes we want something, and
Mhm.
what we want, we don't get. Embrace that. That's reality.
Mm.
Embrace that sometimes we think that we're going to go through a process of, oh, it's going to be step 1, step 2, step 3, and that's going to lead here. And sometimes that's not the case. Yep, embrace that.
Mhm.
But embrace failure, I'm still not there. No, because I think we learn is what it actually is. What we call failure is not actually failure. Failure is I almost said shit, so I'll say it, some shit that happened that we didn't want. And if we allow it, it's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity. And sometimes it's a path diversion in our journey that takes us exactly where we need to be in order to move forward into the next phase of our journey. It's really a beautiful thing in hindsight. It never feels beautiful when we're in it. What say you about failure?
Well, I love your thoughts. I'm glad you tapped into it and also tapped into what all the feels were about, on that word. And it's been on my mind too because interestingly enough, I went to an improv workshop. It was part of this three-part series, and the last one that was on Sunday was about failure.
Mm,
And then we went into our e-school coaching session, and the topic that we got into for 2 hours was failure. And I was like, "Oh, fascinating. Love,
mhm.
love when everything is aligned." And I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I do feel like this whole concept of failure is a construct,
Yes.
another construct that needs to be blown up, so that we can recreate a new word and a new relationship with trial and error, and
Mhm.
trial and error, trial and learning. Just create a new relationship with leaping off the cliff and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
Um, I also put a post out today on this topic, and also reposted a podcast episode that we did, and the podcast episode is turning failure into freedom.
Oh my gosh, so
I
good.
know. I knew you would love that. Freedom's your thing. It's your
It
word.
is. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So I and in the episode, I really reflect on, Thomas Edison, for example, and his perspective of failure. And there's this great interview that was done with him where him and his assistant were being asked about like all the times that he's tried to make a light bulb and failed. And his assistant was like, "Yeah, like it's pretty disappointing." And he said, "What is disappointing about this? We now know there's 10,000 things you can't make a light bulb from. Like that is friggin' awesome." How else
Yeah.
would we have discovered this? Like, and so this is what I would love, what I encourage myself to do, and what I want to encourage others to do too, is really think about what our relationship is with failure. And, if you want to do the deep work and understand where that comes from, great. And I don't think it's necessary. It's really about making a decision to frame it
Yeah.
differently. Stop using the word if which, I think language is so powerful because there's
Yeah.
energy in every word, and failure, there is that energy. And I do think that when I was thinking about this, because I agree with you in that when I've failed, it's because I've been attached to an outcome. I've been attached to things going a certain way. And, oh, my thought just disappeared. Hang on. Nope, it's gone. uh, and because I think, and I was thinking like, well, can we ever just get rid of that feeling? Like not feel the feels when something doesn't go the way we
Mhm.
want it to? But I think for me it's because, I care, or I wanted it to go a certain way. I don't know. I think there's just a moment in there, but for me what helps is just becoming aware of the feeling and being like, "Okay, what's really happening here?" and letting it go. Letting it go.
Yeah. What just popped up, bing,
You got my thought.
was maybe,
What?
let's see. Again, it brought up the word perspective. So to your
Yeah.
specifically to your point about, like the question, can we ever get rid of the feels around it? Perspective, I think, is connected to the answer perhaps, and perhaps it's a matter of which we also dive into on my show tomorrow, this notion of want versus need. And
Mm,
that also is a perspective shift. So if we're able to get to a point in our lives where we're willing to start being honest with ourselves about what is it that I want and what is it that I need, that perhaps is the beginning of you said getting rid of the feels. And I do think that ultimately we can get rid of the feels, but first
Yeah.
there is a minimizing. It's a step by step, inch by inch. We become less and less moved, right? So the feels become really small, um, because it's like if a child may want to eat nothing but banana splits all day. That's what you want. But at some point, it might behoove you to ask yourself, is this really good for me? Because what feels good is not necessarily what is good, right? So if learning and growing is what we need to mature as adults and move forward in our lives, that is not going to feel good all
Mm.
the time. And so once we get that in our minds, I think it does become easier. It
Mm.
has for me
Yeah.
because I've done a lot of perspective shift work and I'm like, don't I'm done with, "Oh, I want this, so I'm just gonna," because I know where that leads. I've lived that life. Every time it's you're gonna run over a cliff and then wonder, "Oh, how'd I end up here?" And then now you gotta start over. Whereas if we remind ourselves that, "Hey, this is what is needful for me. I'm on this journey, and in order for me to progress, I need to," whatever that is. What is that? Do you need to learn more? Do you need to look inwardly and get a handle on your anger? Do you need to learn to be nicer and kinder to people? Do you need to be more spiritually grounded? Do you need to improve your health? Because your body is needed in order for you to go out into the world. Your body, you have to have your health. So, do you need to get healthier? It's a
Mm.
it's a mind shift, perspective shift.
Interesting. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I'm gonna think more about that. What came up for me as you were sharing was, uh, oh, the possibilities that can emerge when we let go of wanting or needing things to go a certain way. And we were talking a little bit about this before we hit record or sorry, went live. And it's I had the gift of interviewing somebody on my podcast yesterday who was not attached to the questions and was just able to go with the flow. And for me, that really is a gift because it is rare to find another individual who is okay with that. And this comes up in my community engagement a lot too, where sometimes clients want to get to a specific outcome by the end of a gathering. And I've gotten really clear that I never guarantee that because what
Mhm.
will come through in the meeting is what needs to come through in the meeting, and if we
Mhm.
force things through, we will miss the gems. We will miss the nuggets that we really are there to hear, what we really need to hear. So, I think that's the other thing too, is that when we get attached to things going a certain way, whether it's winning a race or getting an award or getting on stage or um, finishing your book on time, whatever it is, if we get so attached to it, us meeting that deadline that we have in our mind that we think, oh, this is the best way, we might miss out on what we really need to experience in that moment, which maybe plays into what you were saying.
I think it absolutely does,
Yeah.
and where that lands for me is it a question of being versus doing or accomplishing,
Ooh.
which to me is so connected to identity. And I
Mm,
think as humans, what we need, all of us, more than anything, in order to live healthy, fulfilled lives more than anything, we need to be true to our identity.
Mm.
But we spend so much of our time on other things when the very thing that we want requires being that. So even when you talked about working with clients, I thought, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I relate to that because I'm at a that to stand in a space with a client, right? And say, "No, I won't promise you that. And here's why." That requires not only courage, right? And the ability to be willing to potentially walk away from money, which I know in American society, that's the rub too
Mm.
sometimes. Like, let's get honest with our connection and our attachment to money, right? But to be able to stand in that space requires knowing who you are, and it requires courage. And I'm at that place now in my business too. And for me, even that though comes from a sense of really being committed to showing up in with a spirit of excellence, because it's like you don't really know what you're asking. If you're asking me to help you facilitate and drive an outcome to your predetermined end, when the whole purpose of this meeting is supposed to be to engage people and encourage ideas, let me help you to help yourself, because that's not what you want,
I like
right?
that. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Well, you're being of
no.
service. You're being of ultimate service, I think, as well, in that moment, which is what, drives you and I. I know that. And I think that's what gives me the courage where it's not about me, it's not about my ego, it's not about me knowing what is best. It's like, how can I be of best service to this client, and
Mhm.
ultimately help them make them look better at the end of the day because
Exactly.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it pays off. Let me just speak to somebody
Yeah.
who's watching this. You're in business and maybe you haven't been in business very long, which I relate to that too, right? Because what Ame-Lia and I are talking about right now is where you get typically in the journey of having been in business for a while. You don't start here, right? So if you're just
Mm.
starting, I just want to encourage you that to trust that the more true you are to who you are, in the long run, you'll have more clients and more revenue. You'll make more money that way, even though initially when you're trying to walk out, it seems scary and it may seem like, well, no, I can't do that because then I'm going to lose this job. But if you can just push past and just try, like, let me see if this works, it will get you further faster in the long
Yeah.
run. And yeah, I
Yeah.
just felt that. Maybe
Yeah.
somebody's watching and they're in business and they're like, "Oh, well, easy for you to say, I need the money."
Yeah.
Of course you do. Like, nobody goes in business, right, to lose money. But you will actually make more by having a stronger sense of um, just staying true to yourself and being rooted and grounded in your own values and putting that forward. Clients will respect that.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for saying that. I'm very much still like I'm in that journey right now. And I have just been experimenting with, sticking to my values and putting it out there. And the response has been really amazing. And I think in those beginning stages, like trial and error and failing, are important. So maybe you do say yes for the money, and then the project doesn't feel good, or it doesn't go well, or maybe it gets canceled unexpectedly, or whatever it is. But it's like that's how we learn, and that's how we grow our certainty by taking those steps and feeling the feels that come up during the journey to know what what's the next step next time when we get into
Mhm.
this. So it is a journey, it's a process. Yeah.
Mhm. Can we
Yeah.
encourage, since it's December, just what, a couple weeks before Christmas? Wow. On a similar note, people who might be struggling with mustering up the courage to be true to themselves, where
Mm.
internally their true self is reminding them of the financial goals that they set for themselves. Their true self is reminding them that they were committed to maybe getting out of debt. And then there's this external, societal, capitalistic, commercialism, all of those influences pressuring them to go out now and spend a lot of money around Christmas. And that's not true to
Mm.
it's not aligned, right, with how they want to be living. Because I've been there too. You will feel You'll feel so much better in January
Mm.
if you can muster up and face that fear, because it can be scary. But if you can muster up the courage to say, you know what, I'm just going to try this. I'm going to try listening to my own intuition and let that guide me with respect to what I do or what I don't do around the holiday. You might be surprised at how awesome you feel when you're looking at yourself in the mirror in January saying, "Man, I did that." Like, I didn't buy all that stuff, or I didn't cave. Like, I actually told my family, "No, you guys, actually, I'm not going to participate in whatever the gift giving stuff is because I can't afford it." Like, to actually stand in that truth.
Mm. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. That was a message I needed to hear today too. So, thank you, Joy.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I'm just a vessel.
You're just a vessel. Yeah, well, I hope we've given folks lots to think about. I've This has been such a juicy and relevant feeling conversation for me in this moment. So, thank you, Joy, for guiding us here into this topic. So juicy.
Yeah, and thank you for showing up and just like literally, you guys, before we hit the button to go live, we had just hopped on ourselves. So we didn't pre talk. What are we going to talk about? So thank you, Ame-Lia, for just showing up. And because I totally just pinged off of you in the moment. So I guess we both were standing in this vessel ship today, which is great. I love it. I'm going to continue to do that because I think that's part of learning to develop that muscle of just being you. Just
Mm,
be you in the moment, whether it's something like this or at work or in relationships. Just be you in the moment. Let the true you come out. It's always going to be something of value.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it goes back to just trusting and, going with the flow, going with the flow.
Mhm.
Please leave us comments in the chat. We will be responding, and we'll be back next week, same time, same bat channel.
Yes, and until then, love, much, much, much love and peace to you all, regardless of the circumstances, because that's something that we can always source from within. So that's my final thought.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that, and I'm just gonna drop a astrological note. It's full moon today, and it's a pretty
Uh-oh.
intense one, so if you are feeling the feels, be gentle with yourself today, specifically if you're watching on the Wednesday, and yeah.
Kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself. Yeah, yeah. Much love to everybody.
See you next week.